Hi guys, this is Android Nub, and these are the best semi-casual Android games of 2014. First up we have Cartoon Defense 4, published by MolaMola. This is a castle defense game with colorful artwork and cool effects. You can attack enemies by holding where you want to shoot on the screen, and the goal is to protect your castle from the invading enemies. There's a lot of cool skills to use and a lot of levels to go through. You can upgrade your castle, your weapons, and your skills, and the monsters get harder as time goes on. Next up we have Minigore 2 Zombies, published by Mountain Sheep. This is a cool survival game with pretty nice graphics. The graphics are colorful, kinda like Minecraft, but less pixelated. You have a joystick to move around, and you attack enemies with a button on the right. You can also change the attack button to manual, so you can actually aim where to shoot, or you can just put it as auto to automatically shoot the enemies. You can pick up different weapons to attack them with, and it's just really fun killing all these zombies. It's a fun casual action game. Next up we have Shadow Blade, published by Crescent Games. This is a really cool side-scrolling action game where you play some kind of ninja and you go through many stages, and the goal of each stage is to collect all the stuff and go to the exit. Controls are really simple, an arrow to move left and right, and you can jump and attack. There's some cool ways of killing the enemies, like stabbing them from behind, stabbing them from above, and just running them over. There's some puzzles to go through with some cool jumping. Unfortunately, only the first 7 levels are free. If you like it, probably should buy it. It's a pretty cool game. Next up is Bulu Monster, published by Sigma Game Limited. This is probably one of the best pet battle games on Android. Combat's very similar to Pokemon. You summon your pet and you can choose which skill to use, and when your monsters level up, they can also gain new abilities, and you can also capture monsters with your classic Pokeball. You move around in this game on these tiles, and there's NPCs to talk to, and the game does have a story. If you're looking for a good pet battle game, this is probably the best Pokemon clone on the Android. Next up we have Shardlands, a 3D puzzle adventure game published by Breach Entertainment. Here's an interesting adventure game with very nice graphics. The controls are click and point, and this game is touch controlled. There's a lot of maps where you run around to find the portal to the exit. There's some interesting puzzles like having to move these platforms around in order to pass. There's some enemies that you can kill or run away from. You can double tap to sprint. And it's a cool touch-based adventure game with puzzle elements, and it kinda has a story. Next up we have HonorBound, a 2D RPG published by JuiceBox Games. Here's a fairly high quality 2D RPG. The game has a big map with lots of levels, there is a story and character dialogue. You move by just tapping on the map. Combat's turn-based, and you tap the enemies to attack them. One cool thing is you can actually capture enemies and then they join your party. You can build up your party. There's a lot to do in this game and it's really worth checking out. Next we have Tales of Valhalla, published by Mobifun Games. This is a card-based casual RPG where you go through many stages, and the combat's automated, but there's some cool effects as the cards attack each other. There's a lot of cards to collect and add to your party. You can level them up and evolve them, and it's an interesting game. Next up we have Divine Girl. It's published by Come To Us. This game is almost exactly the same as Tales of Valhalla, except this game has a more of an anime girl theme, so you collect cards and go through many stages, and your cards automatically attack each other, although you can kind of rearrange them before each wave of enemies. There's some nice effects, and the artwork is quite interesting. The game kind of has a story. You kind of have this lowly angel that talks to you about stuff, and there's occasionally some interesting dialogue. Simple but addicting game. Next up we have Bardbarian, published by TreeFortress Games. Here's another castle defense game with much more unique gameplay. So you play this Bardbarian, and you control him with a joystick. You can summon different units and they follow you around, and they attack enemies when they're in range. So you want to kill the enemies and dodge their attacks because you don't want to die. And you go through many waves of enemies. There's boss battles and upgrades to get. It's an interesting game and it does have some good background music. Next up we have Rage of the Immortals, published by GREE. This is a really cool game. It's kind of like a card game. You can collect all these different fighters, and there's tons of fighters to collect. The fighting is automated, so the fighters just attack each other. There is an element system, so certain elements do more damage to other elements. You can also build a city in this game, and there's lots of quests to get, and there's even a main story. So this game does have a storyline as well as side quests. There's actually a lot to do in this game. The artwork is really nice, and the game is actually really fun and addictive. Next up is Hero Siege, a 2D survival game published by Panic Art Studios. When you start, there's 3 different classes to choose from. The game has fairly good looking pixel graphics, It's a survival game where you just go through waves of enemies, use a joystick to move around and a joystick to attack. The only con is that you can't shoot diagonally, you can only shoot in 4 directions, up, down, left, and right. There are RPG elements where you can level up. It's mostly a survival game where you just keep going through waves of enemies, and there are quite a bit of different kinds of enemies. Next up we have Oni 1, a 2D casual action game published by Ernest, Szoka. At first glance, this looks like a simple game with bad graphics, but it's actually kind of fun. You control your character with a joystick, and you attack enemies that randomly appear. You can level up and get skills. Fighting's not super fluid, but it's a fun casual game, and any game where you can knock enemies off a cliff gets a 10 in my book. Next up we have Space Predators, a 2D defense game published by Mountain Lion. So this is a pretty cool looking defense game. Basically you go through many stages. The goal is to destroy all the enemies and prevent them from destroying your ship. The controls are very easy to use, you just kind of tap and hold the screen to shoot. It all works out pretty well, and you do have pretty precise control on where to aim, to buy new guns and weapons, and upgrade your ship. Sometimes you get some power-ups to do some cool attacks. It's a cool casual game to check out. Next up we have Knights and Squires, published by Compilation. This is a unique endless runner with RPG elements, so you control the knight in front and your character is always running forward, but there is action gameplay that you can choose when to attack and when to block. And there's also a ton of different party members to collect. From completing missions or buying them, there are some cool boss battles and you can choose when to use skills for your different party members. This is a unique endless runner RPG and it's fun collecting new party members and going through the levels. Next up we have Ace Fishing Wild Catch, published by Compilation. Here's an interesting fishing game where you fish. So there's a nice looking tutorial girl that teaches you how to play and gives you quests, which usually involves catching fish. So there's a lot of different places where you can catch fish, and the graphics actually look pretty good. So you throw your line out, and it doesn't take long to find fish, and then you tap or hold onto a button to reel the fish in. It's kind of like fighting the fish. There's a lot of different kinds of fish to catch, and they look pretty good graphics wise. The game's easy to pick up and play, and it is kind of fun. And last we have DJMAX TECHNIKA 2, published by Neowiz Internet. This is a cool music rhythm-based game. The screen is divided into 2 parts, and you have to tap the circles when the line goes over them. There's some where you have to drag the circle or tap multiple times or hold on to the circle. This game is supposed to have over 50 songs, but you have to unlock most of them with the money you make in the game. Every song has its own background video, which looks pretty cool, but it can be kind of distracting. It's fun, although it does take a long time to unlock new songs, and the game's like 2 GB in file size. Anyway, that's all for this week. Subscribe for more videos, and thanks for watching.